Today's episode is sponsored by...
June is Audiobook Month. Join Viviana, the Enchantress of Books, and the Audiobook Lovin Series as she celebrates the authors and narrators who bring your favorite stories to life. Not only will this month be packed with exciting guest podcasts full of all things books, but stick around after each episode for some special information about this year's giveaway and more.
Welcome to Season 9, Episode 20 of this year's Audiobook Lovin Series. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting and welcoming back narrator Rob Brinkmann. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me back, welcoming me back onto the show.
Yeah, we've been chatting a little bit before officially starting, and it's been fun.
You know, it's always catching up, talking about the grocery store, all the things we love,
Yeah, I mean, trying to make adulting fun because they don't tell you this shit when you're you're 17 going, I can't wait till I move out and have my own place.
Yeah, if my 17-year-old self knew that, okay, when you're in your 30s, you're going to be so pumped to know that chicken breasts are cheapest here, and then you're going to bop over to that grocery store to get your dry goods and feel so good about yourself.
Yeah.
Boy, would I have a different opinion on the rest of my life.
Yeah, right. It probably would have been in shock. You're like, this is who I turned out to be.
That's right. Well, you can't tell that stuff to your past self.
Yeah.
If you were time traveling, those are the sort of things that would break the time continuum.
Probably, at that rate that, we'll probably do something where these chains jack up the prices because, someone said there was going to be less expensive at this timeline. They're like,
yeah,
no.
That's insider trading. You can't tell your 17-year-old self that chicken breast is cheaper at Whole Foods in 2023 in Manhattan.
Yeah, right. People are like, ooh, what are they talking about?
Well, it's very nice to be back. I'm honored that you would invite me back to chat again.
Oh, absolutely. Just in case for anyone that may not have listened to the original first chat that we did together, tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been narrating, and how you got started.
Sure. So I believe my first book was in 2019. I am an actor by trade and education, been performing professionally for over 10 years, all up and down the East Coast. And I found my way into audiobooks. A friend and also a narrator, Sarah Naughton, she was like, "Oh, you should try this. Instead of working a million side jobs, this is a fun way to make some money and also get to perform." And so I started doing just one book, 2 books a year, as I was sort of building my booth at home, going from the closet to a little plastic tub to building my first booth out of doors I found on the street, and all the way evolving to my sweet little prefab ISO booth that I'm in now. But it changed into something that became a full-time endeavor over the pandemic. I was in Stomp, this show in New York before the pandemic, and then all the theaters shut down, and I had a little back surgery, which was fun, and I decided to, in my new time, spend it in audiobooks and see how much I could throw into it. And it was like, lifting up a rock and seeing into the Feywild. I fell in love and found a route into something that could potentially be a future and a career. And the community began to blossom and friends began to blossom. Work started coming. And this is now something that I'm very proud to be very deeply entrenched in.
Yeah, it's been fun seeing that because I remember when I first met you online, I was like, why are people not hiring you more? How did they not know about you?
I'm a wee baby.
Yeah, and I'm like, we're going to fix that.
And you helped to fix that. I'm greatly appreciative to you having me on the show and, helping me through my little toddler steps.
Yeah, no, that was a little bit more selfish on me. I just wanted to hang out with you.
No, anytime.
Bonus that people were like, who is that? I'm like, you don't know Rob? Oh my goodness. Yeah, the amount of calls I got were okay. Let's just reality checks, not calls anymore. DMs.
That's right.
The amount of DMs I got were like, hey, that narrative that we just published. I'm like, I was just like, wait for it. I'm like, yeah. They're like, he has a nice, smooth sounding voice. I go, yeah, you think so? No shit,
well,
Sherlock. I was like, no shit, Sherlock. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind, and for you, started and your career has blossomed, and you're doing a bunch of different things. Your social media was always fun. by the way. If you guys are not following him on social, it's hilarious. He does all these. You're still doing those warm-ups, a la singing and using
Yes,
all this
that's
fun
very
sound
kind of
effects.
you. If I make myself laugh, I try to record it and put it up
Hmm.
there as often as I can.
Yeah, no, it's always great. Like sometimes when you're having one of those days, I know I do. I'm like, "Ugh, people."
You say sometimes as if it's not at least once during every day of my life.
Right? But then I'm like, I need to like perk up or something because I need to people again or whatever. I'm just like, I'm not in the mood to be in these trenches. And I'm like, see if Rob posted something funny. During us,
Oh,
I'm like, oh, there it is. Thanks, my smile.
I got you. I got you.
But tell us, what have you been doing since the last time you and I spoke? Because you've gotten a couple of shows and all this fun
Yeah,
stuff. People are getting back to quote unquote normal.
I know things are getting back to normal. I mean, the theater scene in New York is coming back. It's coming
Hmm.
back in a really big way. I'm about to start. I've been in rehearsals for the last month and a half for an immersive production of The Great Gatsby, actually.
Hmm.
And we are opening at the end of June, and it's an open-ended run, so it should be running for as long as they'll have us there. They renovated this 16,000-foot ballroom in the Park Central Hotel, this place right south of Central Park. And it's going to be really exciting. We're going to be doing the story of the Great Gatsby immersively and
Hmm.
pulling people into rooms. And I get to be Nick Carraway, which is a huge honor to fill those shoes. A character that I studied, I mean, that we all studied. It was
Hmm.
there's something about this story, The Great Gatsby. I was talking to my wife yesterday about it, actually, and she said something that really blew my mind. We were talking about myth and sort of human mythos, and in a way, like the story of The Great Gatsby has become part of the mythos of the Roaring Twenties. I feel for a lot of people, when they think of the 20s, the Great Gatsby, the story of F. Scott Fitzgerald's story and writing comes into mind. And, what is the myth other than a story that's told time and time and time again? And this is starting to fall into that category. So that's a new thrill that's coming up. We'll be doing 8 shows a week, starting soon.
Nice.
And then on the book front, I have been really, really, really lucky to have been working in the romance in a sort of major way. I think romance now is taking up probably a solid 3/4 of my work, and I couldn't be happier because of it. I'm not sure if I had attended the Indies Invade Philly event before or after we chatted. I think it was after because that was
Yeah.
a huge solidifying moment, bringing the community into reality.
Hmm.
There's a certain aspect of the job that is, very uh, isolating. We as many emails as we send a day and talk to as many people through that forum. It's not the same as seeing readers and listeners and authors and other narrators in person, and it just really kind of brought the whole story together for me as what this industry is and what it can be and what it can mean for people, because it means a lot. Stories mean a lot to people, and I in that moment I think I what was in my mind stories about romance and a genre became stories about people and the human connection in these stories, specifically in the romance genre, and how important that is. That is something that I have now prioritized, and I really, really love being a part of the romance genre as a narrator and a participant. Um, yeah, it's been really thrilling to sort of see the deep depths of our genre, because like before you read your first romance book, especially
Yep.
as like I don't know a young dude, I was like romance books, Fabio?
Yep.
Question mark. And then see lifting behind the curtain and seeing what it really
Hmm.
means, and the stories of love and people and companionship. It's the fruit of it all, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm an actor. I've devoted my life to understanding people and trying to understand motivation of people and the way they use language and physicality to communicate, and it's all in this genre.
Yeah, and not just the romance side of things, but as far as relationships too, you have those, but the friendships between the two characters or the family dynamics and how there's just so many different little aspects of it that it's nice to see more people diving into it and seeing that part versus just the Fabio.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a space for Fabio. Fabio is a legend, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
the
I
idea
know.
of these
One of the OGs.
legendary characters, you know. But I hear you and I agree with you. I love a story that incorporates families, especially in some of these series where you play one brother and then the next book is the next brother. And, you know, I love, you know, when you see that thread, and you read enough romance novels, that when you see the thread of that sort of secondary character brother who like meets another secondary character, and you're like, yeah, that's gonna be a book down the line. I don't know when it's coming, but I see it. It's gonna happen. And as a narrator, you have a short panic of like, okay, did I give that person a crazy voice? Can I do that for a whole
Right?
book?
I know you were talking about that the last time, about those moments where the character pops into fill in the blank scene just for 2 seconds. The listeners are like, we want their story. And they're like, they just literally said hi.
That's it. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yep. But other times they're there for a little bit having a conversation, and you don't know that they're going to potentially be. And you give them this weird, like extra bubbly or higher pitch or lower pitch kind of voice. And then you're like, that's gonna ouch you later if I have to do that book.
And I've learned tactics and ways to allow that to influence a main character portrayal of a character that has a sort of higher or lower dynamic. But it's fun. It's like, it's like I see it like, the first book is the first dot of the pen, and then you kind of make these concentric circles. Is that the right use of that word? I don't know. A spiral. You keep spiraling out, and these small towns grow and grow and grow, and you see all the lives of all the outsiders in the town have their story. The barkeeps, the inn managers. It's just wonderful.
It's great. I'm gonna go back to The Great Gatsby for a little bit.
Sure.
So when you say immersive, tell us a little bit more about that for those that may not know exactly what that means when it comes down to a play.
Yeah, totally. So immersive, it just means that the environment is designed to deliver an all-encompassing experience. So from the moment that you walk into the theater is not what we call a proscenium space. Proscenium meaning there's a stage in front of you and seats behind it. You walk into our playing space and you are in Gatsby's mansion. You are in his jazz bar, and there's a big sprawling bar. There's a whole pre-show where characters come through, but the action is going to take place around you. So you could be standing there and Gatsby could run by, ask you a question, and then bring you into his office to do a scene with you and 10 other people. What I really love, and I think is unique about our production, this is a production coming from London, created and directed by Alexander Wright. They've been sort of developing this piece for a number of years now, and they really have figured out the equation of involving the audience in a way that's not just doing the show around the audience. Some immersive theater can be done where it is simply happening around you and you just move around it and it's happening above and next to you. But in our show, every person who comes to see our show, they are at Gatsby's party. And so when we're pulling characters into small rooms, the goal is to bring them in as if they are partygoers. And so we're doing the scene and we are giving you the full experience and story of The Great Gatsby down to all the nitty gritty of it. But we are leaning on you as, as confidants, especially as Nick Carraway. I have a unique opportunity in the show in that, especially with the book, you really see the world through Nick Carraway's eyes. And so I get to use characters as sounding boards because in a way, the way that I'm seeing a scene play out, because so many of these characters are new to Nick in this world, is the way that the audience is seeing that. So I could be doing a scene. Nick and Tom could be enwrapped in a scene together, and as Tom has a big paragraph, a big sort of monologue as he boasts about, I could have a quick aside to a character, just sort of like checking in, saying, "Oh, this is wild," and really bringing them into the world as a new potential friend of Nick Carraway, and then find them later on in the show, bring them into another scene, and have that rapport that we created in that first scene. There's so many possibilities.
Yeah.
We start to get some test audiences this week, so I'm really thrilled to start to incorporate that kind of stuff, because right now we're in this giant playing space, imagining the people around us.
Now,
So,
as those people that you're bringing into the show with you, as far as the audience, do they just kind of sit there and go, when
They
you're
can.
talking to them, or
It's all consent-based work, so you will never be, as an audience member, asked to do anything that you don't consent to. So you can choose not to answer, you can choose to abstain, but in each of the small rooms there's places to sit. And so we'll invite you into a room and have you sit down, and the scene will take place around you. And you can also choose to stay in the big giant jazz bar space, and if you stay in that space for the whole show, you will still get the whole sort of tent pole moments, as I like to call them, the sort of big moments where you will understand by the end. You'll get all the moments of The Great Gatsby. You'll know the story. And so we have, chairs and tables for folks who have mobility needs that are diverse and would prefer to sit and see the show in that way. Our goal is to give a show to anyone who wants to come experience it.
I would have been that girl that was, no, you don't say.
And that's great that we have some of the cast members that came in and worked with us from the original cast. And now, when we're asking questions like, what happens if an audience doesn't respond in the way that this sort of scene needs to? And the way that they told us, they're like, oh, those are the best nights. Because you do the show 100 and 120 times, the nights when audience member, doesn't respond in the way that you think they will, that forces you to really respond in the moment and have a real interaction with them. And so it's they're giving us all the tools to go at it, but it's exciting, it's new, I'm excited to be on stage again. I'm an actor. This is my blood, this is my bread and butter.
Yeah, but also I think too is because of that different reaction and the different vibes of the audience side of things, it also kind of allows you to play off a little differently. And so it's almost like the play changes just a tiny bit every day.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's I think for deep fans of the book, it's going to be a nice opportunity to expand on the world. If we were doing the straight play of The Great Gatsby, you would see just what was happening on the pages happen in front of you. But because we expand the world and expand these characters, you get to see some nuances to them. This sort of expansive vision of a character that in a book would sort of fit an archetype. You get to see, why they would, or the before moments of why they are this way in this moment in the book. That's the fun of immersive, because it's all happening at the same time. I think we have like somewhere close to 14 hours of material. Our read through took like a day and a half, and it all happens within, around 2.5 hours, but simultaneously. And
Wow.
so, our cues we're cueing each other. We have content that could overlap. It's wildly complicated. But
You
thrilling enough.
thrive. Yeah.
I thrive on this, man. I thrive on this. And it's like, I'm narrating in the morning in my booth, 8 inches from my mic, and then I'm switching my brain to performing in a giant 10,000 foot room to, ostensibly 200 people. And so my brain is really vacillating right now, but I think it's making my narrations really alive right now. I feel so fueled by it.
So you don't know this, but Great Gatsby is one of my favorite books.
You have to come through.
I know. I want to. Where's that sugar daddy we were talking about before? No. But I mean, that's why I was asking, because I've seen it on stage, locally here, and watched the movies, and of course read the books, and it's just one of my favorites. And even in high school, we had, because it's back in the day when we read books in school, it was.
I remember that time.
Yeah, and it wasn't banned. But anyways, it was one of those stories where a lot of the kids were like, ugh, it's not cool. And having the teacher say, hey, Viv, you have this thing about being able to explain what these old stories would be like in modern times. Like I had to explain Beowulf one time, and I'm like, think of it as Jaws Part 3 and Hercules.
As far as,
where the mama Jaws gets all upset that her son got killed and now she's going for revenge, and Hercules comes into the whole this like massive magic stuff and gods and the fight, and the eyes were like, oh, I'm like, now you get it, and they're like, I'm like, okay,
that's right, she speaks to the people, let's go.
So I had to do something similar with The Great Gatsby, and I'm like, okay. So it's funny though, if I had to do it now, what that would look like. Like, so you were watching a video on TikTok, and
yeah, that's a trippy thing,
yeah. But it's a favorite of mine. So it's hearing all this stuff, and I was so thrilled when you shared that you got cast in it. I was like, yay! Because it's a one of the things that I love about books and the classics is being able to kind of revisit these in a different way based on the interpretation of the cast, or if it's a movie or a TV show. Thank you, Bridgerton, and things like that. So it's fantastic. How has it? Because you were in on stage, then did the whole narration via the pandemic. You kind of had to train your brain to turn off a little bit some of that stuff that you are so used to doing in the theater, but you can't do in a booth because noise and 8 inches away from a mic and projecting the emotion through your voice versus an expression that you would have given on stage. And now you kind of have to go back to that. You were telling us a little bit about that before.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
certainly a different, it's like a tool. We refer to it as like the actor's tool belt, right? There's different ways to perform, and certainly in the booth, 8 inches from a mic, when your audience is quite literally sometimes centimeters away from your voice, it requires a different style of performance. Um, but at the end of the day, it's all about just trying to be honest, just trying to portray these characters honestly. And different genres sort of can allow for a bit more. Sometimes the fantasy books, I can live a little bit larger in the characters. Um, but for right now in this moment, it really is. It's a it's like a physicality switch, using your body in a three-dimensional space versus trying not to move so your shirt doesn't make like a ruffling noise. It really is. It's a mind warp, but it's a good one because it's like the brain is so elastic, and getting to stretch it in those opposite directions, it just kind of it connects the molecules in between and makes, I think, for really rich storytelling. At least I'm experiencing and clocking in my own performances with the books I'm working on right now. Is you when you do text work, whenever you sit down and you do text work for a play, there's so many ways you can go about it, but I really enjoy text work and just honing in on the verb, adding intention on verbs and finding key words and phrases. And my sort of brain has now been trained to naturally find these things with a bit more vibrancy. And so that's where I'm finding the translation happening right now with the work I'm doing with the stage piece and in the book narration, because you can scale all of that down and it is just as effective. Just getting a little bit of reverberation and spinning certain phrases and hitting those keywords, that's where I'm finding the tether to be. And I hope that only serves for a more dynamic performance. That's the goal, at least.
I have not heard any complaints.
Well, I'm sure it'll happen. It's, as I always say, a narrator is like, it's like finding a therapist. It's like it's gotta jive with your inner monologue, and there's no harm, no foul if it don't.
Yeah, but a lot of these characters that we're listening to and that you guys are performing, some are really in-depth individuals, others are a lot lighthearted if it's a rom-com, but there's still some stuff going on. And I know sometimes there's moments where you kind of have to downplay it a little bit, and other times where you can just throw it in there. I know there's an author friend of mine that I love, when she does her books and it's a multicast, she tells her narrators, do it to the third balcony, which means belt it out there, put it out there, put yourself out there, because
Yeah.
the performance is just like so much better when you're giving it your all. Granted, if the paper says as he screamed, like, please don't scream in my ear.
Yeah.
Because that's
There's a sweet spot.
Yeah,
And you're right, there's also author preferences in the style that they want their book performed, and that is totally taken into account.
In this past year, I know that when we talked before about the genres that you get to perform in and things like that, within romance, there are so many different subgenres. Have you found that some of your preferences maybe has changed a bit as far as which ones, not that you don't love them any less or anything like that, but sometimes you just didn't have a chance to perform in that genre and you're going, oh.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I enjoy I did a second chance romance, and I was charmed by it. I got to play this sort of single father with these three young kids, and a friend from childhood comes back into town, and that's where the romance happens. But there was just something really going from, for me, I'm an action movie buff. I love these sort of big, dramatic explosions, and I love the ex-Marine stuff when it's just the action is entwined with the romance. And then the first title I did that was a bit more contained in the sort of the human connections
Mhm.
of a small town versus the sort of using the conflict of violence or something outside of the town itself to move along the story. Just the people themselves, I found myself really enchanted by that. So I look forward to doing more second chance romances. I've gotten to play some more sunshine male main characters as of late, and I really like them. I think that there's something very sweet and disarming about those characters, but also there's always a reason why they're putting that on. And I think to get to play that sort of duality is really fulfilling. Also did my first fantasy romance, which was really fun.
I know you
It was
mentioned it before that you're like, oh, I would love to do a fantasy book, and I'm like, you just wait.
Yeah, that's like the true marriage of my favorites, right? I am a fantasy nerd at heart, and in the fantasy romances, you get to play the fae and the beasts, and there's creatures that come in, and that's when you can have a little bit more fun with those character voices. But then the stakes are just higher.
Yeah.
I find like with fantasy, that's the only sort of transition is just everything's raised because there's a lot of life or death stuff that happens in fantasy romances. Um, just because of the nature of the mythos and the creatures and the settings of these grand stories, but they're really fun as well. And that one was it was MMFMM, so it was romance between different genders and crossing boundaries, and it was the first time I had worked within that parameter, and it was wonderful. So yeah, those are the ones I've been enjoying, and I did a rom-com which was really fun with Lily Valenti. We did, oh my gosh, Boss Without Benefits was so much fun. It was, I was dying laughing in the booth. There were moments I had to I had to step out of the booth because it was so funny what was happening. So boy, would I love to do more rom-coms.
You
Boy,
have
oh boy.
you have a great sense of timing, and your sense of humor is just fantastic. It makes sense that you would like the rom-coms just from that perspective. And you
It's
also,
just good. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as much as you love your action, things that go kaboom and all this other fun stuff, you're also very lovey-dovey romantic. So
Well, that's very kind of you. I think it comes down to like, there's things that I enjoy and then there's things that I just am better cast for. And, it's just I like the sweet nerd. There's something, the meet cutes, right? It's the
yeah,
clumsiness of it all. It's just so endearing, and it's naturally fun to watch two clumsy people clumsy their way into love.
I've realized for myself as a reader that as much as I love the assertiveness of some of these characters that are considered to be more alpha kind of things, I prefer at least the character in human life, as far as with his friends and stuff like that. If he wants to be a dom in the bedroom, that's a different conversation. And with his friends and stuff, that is more traditionally what I would find to be someone that I would gravitate to, which is that bit of that grumpy sunshine. If he's sarcastic, I'm like, hello, sir, like, you're my friends, but also being able to make me laugh. And so having those clumsy moments, I'm like, yeah, I totally would have fallen on my head for that one, because I have fallen down the flight of, not a whole flight of stairs, but the last two steps. It's always the last two steps, right?
So it's because you got your mind on where you're going. You got places to go. Those last two steps, they get lost in the mix sometimes.
Yeah, wearing the glasses and the depth perception really just sucks too. But yes, I like your version better. I got stuff to do, folks, in this last two.
Stuff to do. You just got to get to it.
Yeah. And how are you finding keeping everything balanced? Because, we see you a lot on social. I know some stuff is recorded in advance, but not with the play and the books and, having to go grocery shopping. How do you do it?
It's it's tough. It's tough. I'll be honest. Right now, it's particularly tough because we're in the theater 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, which translates to 10 hours out of house when you include the commute. So I'm waking up pretty early to record. I see my wife for a hot second, make a breakfast, and then I leave and come back at 10. And that's how it's been for the last month. Now, once we go into performances, I will get my days back and I'll get to have a bit more time. But it's tough, you really have to, it's like conservation of energy. You have to really decide when to engage and how to engage. And I save that energy, that pool of energy, for performance. So for when I'm in the booth, I give that everything that I have, and then when we're doing runs, I give that everything I have. So it's an active process of choosing when to give everything. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but it's what you got to do, right? And I don't negate the fact that I've been very fortunate this past year as far as where things are taking off in the narration world. And there was a world where I could have just not booked anything for 2 months. And I was really apprehensive to saying no to working with these amazing new production houses and amazing new authors. And so I think I've found a way to Tetris it all in where I was able to say yes to some degree to everybody, to keep this momentum going forward while also still getting to dive into this theater process, which means so much. But it's a balance.
Hmm.
It's a
Yeah,
balance.
I've had to learn and also teach, learning this earlier on in my own career within corporate world, the whole like saying no thing. It's you don't have to say no, and because executives don't like that. I got into trouble a few times. Like,
Really?
well, yeah, because it's like that sometimes people have these unrealistic expectations, right? In some
Mm.
cases, or schedules are just not going to work out because you have 15 different projects. So I learned instead of just saying no, it was I would love to do that for you and be part of that. Unfortunately, it could be like I can do it, but based on other stuff that's going on right now, if you're okay with it doing it this timeline or moving it over here, or help me manage this other stuff so I can get what you want done in that fashion. It's just one of those where people just don't like to hear no, but there's a way to modify that in HR verbiage.
Yeah, for sure. And to be honest, everyone who I've worked with has been
Yeah.
so giving in that way with
Yeah.
this process and being supportive of this. The production houses and authors have been so good to me in that way. Where when I've had to shift something, or if I've had to do something, there's been so much support, and again, I'm lucky for that as well.
Well, communication is key, and I've always told authors too when we're talking about casting, and they get a little shocked sometimes that you guys are booked out so far in advance, and I'm like, that's called work, and expect from a freelancer, that's how you keep your sanity,
Yeah.
making sure you have work. But also when they're concerned about that time, I'm like, listen, option one is we wait because you want Rob to do the book, and that's the perfect fit. I agree with that. So option one is we wait until he has availability, do other things in the interim, or we see about other persons, and they're like, no, but I want Rob. I'm like, I guess we're waiting then, huh?
And we will always do everything in our power
Yeah.
to get the project done as soon as possible. But you
Yeah.
also want to give realistic timelines so no one is getting shafted, or
Yeah.
you don't
But
put
also
yourself in a
you,
situation.
if you're stressed out as a performer and you're tired, you overdid it, whether at the theater or in the booth, and now your voice is shot. I would rather wait and get the best time from you perspective versus getting either aiding and making you not well, which is never the goal, but also getting a performance that may not be the best out of you because of all that stuff.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I speak for myself, but I'll always, if it's a matter of vocal health or it's going to something that's going to affect the performance, there'll always be a conversation of waiting to get that performance. And I am firmly choosing Mondays. Mondays is going to be my day off moving forward, and that is going to be a no work Monday,
Nice.
which is
Let's
going to
make
be
that a
hard
sticker.
for me to stick to, but I think I'm really going to I'm going to push myself to stick to it. I'm one of those
Okay.
people I will
Good.
just stay up all night to finish something, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not healthy. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on being better about that.
I'm gonna do some graphics and just shoot them to you every once in a while. No work Monday.
No work Monday. Yeah, maybe that'll be my sticker at
Yes.
conventions.
That could be
But,
some of your swag.
yeah, exactly. But it's a balance, It's like these are good. They're all good problems, right? It's to
Yeah,
have work is a good thing.
it's a great thing. It is. But I, as someone that also needs to have something like that in front of me and still like, but I can probably still do it. It's
That's
just
right. You
it's
gotta just
it's
check that
important.
voice. You gotta check that
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah, I'm like, I need a break. I can't come up with anything new right now. Oh, that's right, because you're burning the candle on both ends in the middle. So but it's a great thing to have. And I know that the readers, the conversations I have been privy to and on socials, they're all loving on you. So that's great. And I
Oh,
love
that's
that for
that's
you.
kind of you to say. Community rules, right? The community's it's half of it with this
Hmm.
industry.
It is. So now that you've done this a lot longer, what are some of your favorite things about being a narrator?
Some of my favorite things about being a narrator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at its base level, as selfishly an actor, I get to perform so many characters. I get to perform a wide range of accents and dispositions, because, as a narrator, you get cast in the main point of view, which is a general reflection of someone that you could be cast in. And then all the side and tertiary characters that come up in the book, that's where the real sort of like wild energy and fun is. Because I'll play, you play the old lady next door, or the tiny raccoon that has, a jetpack. Like there's those are so much fun to do as an actor. And, walking into the world of voice acting as well. It's like, oh man, I love that about narrating. Something else, and I kind of touched on this earlier, but with novels and with books, I mean, there's stories, right? I mean, I've committed my life to being a storyteller, and the core of all of it is just companionship. I think is the way that people choose to express companionship. Like with love language,
Mm-hmm.
people choose to express the way they love in physical ways and in verbal ways, and every author is so different in the way that they sort of unpack the thought process of each of these main characters. And every book is a character study on a different person that exists out there in the world, and getting the perspective on how someone's day might be going. I firmly believe in meeting new people from out in the real world, just assuming that they could be having the worst day of their life, because you never know what someone's going through, and just trying to give them good energy. And with books, it's just, it's tenfold, because these characters are going through wild things. Just, it's insane. When doing a piece, I had a teacher once who had this mantra of, you're thinking about a character and a scene or the play. It's like, okay, why is this play happening today? Why is this scene happening today? What's happening in this character's life that is so unique about this day? Because there's always something unique about the day. The meet cute, the travel, whatever is happening that's making these characters meet in this day, and getting to I like to just sort of think wistfully about all these things that are happening out in the world after I read them in a book. So that's the little dreamer in me, which loves narrating those kind of stories. It's also, as an actor, it's really nice. It's more than nice. It's empowering to have a bit of equity and ownership over your performance. The process of being a stage actor, or even in film, you put yourself out there in auditions, and you throw the auditions out there, and you do the best you can by throwing things out there, but you're waiting for someone else to sort of snag your line and call you in. Where with narration and being a narrator, I found a lot of fun and empowerment in creating a brand and creating my voice and choosing the stories that I want to tell. I feel like I have ownership as an artist, which is not something that they teach you is really possible. And so it's something I'm very grateful for every day that I get in the booth. Um, and then the conventions, like, going to the conventions and meeting the community. It's, when you do a show, you see people after the show. Sometimes they hang around, you check in, but you don't really know how someone's being affected. You could have a great show and feel like everything crushed, and then you leave and, you find that it was just didn't connect with someone. Or you could leave after having what you thought was a terrible show, and someone's waiting outside and in tears because they were so affected by it. But with the books, like, people are very vocal about how they're affected by the stories. For all, for better and for worse, it's all, experience. It's all their human experience in listening to the story. But it's really nice to talk to listeners and authors in person as well, just to see how these characters resonate, because it's only one performance that they get, which is the trippy thing. You just get one shot at giving the performance, and that same performance is given to everybody who listens to the audiobook. And so it kind of there's the sanctity of that performance and the text becomes even more precious. And so there's with a theater process, there's so much play and try, okay, let's try the scene this way, let's try the scene this way, let's see how it works with an audience. But when you're in the booth and you're recording, it's like, okay, I'm going to give this my full attention, and I'm going to give my full self to this, so that I can give an honest performance that is going to be the one that lasts the test of time. And so it's it's high stakes, but that's thrilling. That's really thrilling. Boy, did I just talk in a whole bunch of circles, but that's my general answer.
Yeah, no, you're good. Well, but with that last point too, you're giving us that solid one performance, and then us as listeners are taking it in so many different ways, right?
Yeah.
Based on how we're what mood we're in, what we are reflective of, what's coming up, how that scene may have touched us, or if we knew a guy like that, you know, or
Yeah.
oh, if I've been in those shoes, that sucks, or oh yeah, I've been in those shoes, yeah, girl, go. And
It's
so
catharsis, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the point
yeah.
of it all.
But the one thing that stays constant is your performance, though. That did not change. It's how we're listening to it, and that, and then being able to go to these conferences, for an example, and just have that moment with you and just say, "Oh my God, XYZ book was fantastic. I loved it." You know, and yeah, just getting to hang out. That's good. I know that you're thinking. I think you mentioned you're going a couple of. Do you have some stuff coming up that you're going to as far as conventions?
Yeah, I will be at Indies Invade Philly this year. I think that's probably the only one that I'll be able to get away from the show to do, just because it's local. It's really easy to get to. And next year, TBD, I might be taking some more time to go and really be present at these conventions because they seem so much fun. They seem so great. But for sure, 100% Indies Invade Philly in October, I believe, which it might
Yes,
be sold. I might have sold out
I think it's sold
in
out.
minutes. I think it's sold out.
Yeah, we're the community is just so voracious in wanting to people and just be able to connect with book friends and meet the authors and share their love for them. And the same thing with the narrators at the events that they have them there, that it's selling out. Plus also some of these venues are smaller than others, so they'll sell out a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And
It
then
was,
people,
it did seem very much the perfect size last year.
yeah.
Granted, it was my only sort of perspective on the convention size, but it seemed like we all got to see who we wanted to
Mhm.
see.
Yeah, one of those rare occasions where size does matter. And
Oh my gosh.
bigger is not always better.
Oh my gosh.
It's how it's
Viviana.
used. I mean, seriously.
You.
Yes, yes, yes. But yeah, a lot of it used to be that we had like the RT Book Lovers Convention, which was, the biggest. I mean,
Which one?
RT Book Lovers Convention. It doesn't happen anymore. It was Romance Times. It used to be a magazine, and
Ah,
they started doing conventions. And it was like a 5 day thing, and it was
wowza.
had different tracks for inspiring authors, established authors, up and coming, all these different things, including marketing information stuff. And narrators started going to it towards the end of it because it's, like I said, it's no longer around. But that was like that was the it's convention for people to go to in the book community, because it also did reader events. So we had panels for readers and authors and narrators that doing things and parties and stuff like that, and those were huge. But because it was 5 days, you still found time to go grab a beer with someone at the lobby or hang out and go
Mm,
lunch. A lot of now these events are just like a day in some cases, or two, and
yeah.
you're scrambling and things like that. So sometimes having it to be in a bigger place where there's more people going and more authors, you're like, there's just not enough time. You have that, that Saved by the Bell moment. I have no time. There's
Yes,
never enough
exactly.
time.
It's nice when there's a sort of informal socials
Yeah.
afterwards, or at least sort of gathering points.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I think that we'll be having more events that are not so much official signings, but more like, hey, let's get together, whether it's a author doing like a reader group, gathering. And I know there's been some talk about having narrators attend more of these events and figuring out how you guys can fit in with what the original thought process of the event may have been. And so it's all fun.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to being able to get my hug from you one of these days.
You're gonna get it. I will run. It's gonna be the airport moment where I'll just run.
Oh,
I'll be running in slow motion. Dun,
yeah.
dun, 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 dun. Go.
As long as you don't make it into one of those rom-coms where you end up slugging me into the floor.
No, you'll be doing the Dirty Dancing lift to me.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
So, well, don't worry. Well, you have time. You have time to practice, rehearse.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's be good.
Goodness,
Just
yeah.
expect it. Just
Got it.
expect
Okay, yeah. Mhm. Then when you hear that moment in the movie with the music, I'm like, okay, got it. We'll have to plan that out.
I got you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Ugh.
Loving the love, yeah. So I want to play a game with you called Two Truths and a Lie. See how fun it's gonna be.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're gonna tell me 3
Okay.
things about yourself, of which one is a lie, but I have to figure out which one it is. So it's always like, let's see how well I actually do know that you or
Let's see.
not.
How
And
well do you know me?
yeah. Hmm.
All right. 2 truths and a lie.
Okay.
All right. In no particular order.
Mm-hmm.
In between dance classes and children's theater when I was a kid, I played soccer growing up. Another one, I am wildly afraid of being in open water. And another one, I once scaled the clock tower in New York and etched my name on the clock's face.
Okay.
Those are your 3.
Damn. Oh, Jesus. You did good. Let's see.
Played soccer growing up,
Oh.
afraid of open water, scaled the clock tower.
Mm-hmm.
Time starts now.
Yeah, see, it's one of those details because
All right, choose? Can you know which one? Can you find one of the truths?
oh yeah, that's a good way to go about it. Oh, fear in the open water is one of your.
I am so afraid of being in open water. My God. I was when I was in high school, I had some surgery done and I was laid up during Shark Week. I watched every single Shark Week program that there was. And I love the beach. I'm a huge beach guy. I love the water, but there's something about being in murky water or deep water.
You can't see the bottom.
I'm done. I'm done with it. Get me out.
Well, thankfully, there's not a whole lot of reasons why you would end up being in that, scenario as far as being in the open water that far out.
This is true. Well, but then sometimes you have a really adventurous wife who wants to go offshore snorkeling, and you gather all your gusto that you can, and you do it. And it was a wonderful time. But then seeing the drop off, where like the continental shelf was the most terrifying moment of my life. There was a quick anecdote. We were on this little boat with a family, and it was just Lizzie and I. And the mother of this family was equally as stressed out as I was. And we were like, okay, great. We got each other. We'll keep checking in with each other and it'll be great. And so we're going through it. And it's actually quite lovely seeing fish. But as this route that they were taking us, the ocean floor was getting farther and farther away. It went from like, ooh, nice tropical reef, ooh, Finding Nemo moment to like, ooh, it's getting a little darker. And then this deep, swelling darkness appears in front of you that just goes on absolutely forever. And I see this woman booking it back in my direction. And then I see what she's swimming away from. I start booking away and we both go to the boat. And we got to know each other real well after while they were doing their swim towards the thing. And we were just chatting about how happy we were to not be near that crazy dark edge into hell abyss.
Yeah. No, I've been in one of those situations. Being from here in Florida, we have some of those not even that far deep out into the ocean. Some of those are pretty close to us, where you're going walkie. Where did the land go?
Woof.
And
thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, and but that deep, yeah, it's interesting where the coloring too happens, but you're like, there is no, where that drop is. You're going,
yes, you do.
You're like, no, I'm okay over here.
Where's my pina colada? Please get me back to my pina colada. So now you know that about me.
Yep. Yeah, so that's the truth. Is the lie the one about scaling the clock tower?
That is true. There was a period in my let's say my adult adolescence when I was in college in the city where I would go and climb scaffolding. And I would just go out in the city and I would climb scaffoldings and go hang out on water towers. Have a nice little moment. And there was a clock tower in the West Village that was under sort of scaffolding construction for a while. And a buddy and I, you're hearing my stomach rumble because it's breakfast time. A buddy and I scaled the scaffolding around this clock tower, and we stood like gargoyles on top of this clock tower, and our names are etched in there forever. And every time I pass this, 9-story clock tower in the village, I think about that day. And I feel, what in God's name was I thinking of to do such a thing?
Well, I could see you doing the climbing part. It was the etching of your name on there that I was a little bit like,
Well, I say etched,
yeah,
but it was in pencil. I want to sound cooler than I really was. All we had was a pencil, so it's not there anymore, and it's no damage done. But we put our names in pencil, and we felt strong about it.
Yeah, see, that's more believable.
I'm not as cool as I want to be. Okay, all
No,
right.
but seriously, I could have totally envisioned you climbing and doing that, you know, as far as the whole look what I can do and also a bit of that risk thing and action-packed stuff that you like to do. It was that whole like, right, you know, defacing stuff like that, even if it was tiny. I'm like, oh, it doesn't sound a whole lot like, not permanently anyways, but yeah.
No,
Yeah.
just a little pencil, and it was one of those clicky pencils, and so the tip kept breaking. But now you know. Now you like really know the truth of it. But
Yeah,
in
but I
my
loved it.
mind, I'm up there forever.
Yeah. But you did it. You climbed. You did that. You stood on the gargoyles
I
and
did.
you yeah, God,
Oh,
see.
it was wild.
Yeah. You'll climb up that way where you can fall to your depths and of death and stuff, but not the ocean. Yeah.
It's not responsible. I do not endorse this. This is not good. It was trespass. This was not a horrible behavior on my part. But it was a memory. You know, sometimes you do things
Mm-hmm.
that just, in retrospect, you would just never do again, and certainly
Yeah.
wouldn't tell anyone else to do. So,
No,
not
no.
endorsed. Anyone
Yeah.
who's listening, no, 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 no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no.
No.
Which means my lie was I did not play soccer growing
Sure.
up.
Mm-hmm.
I played 2 games of soccer in my life, twisted my ankle both times. Never played again. I played ice hockey growing up. In between dance class, I would change into my hockey gear in the back of my dad's sedan from
Mm-hmm.
my like tights from ballet, and I would be changing into my goalie gear in the back seat and arrive just in time for games. This was my childhood.
Wow. That's also a complete like left field concept, right? Because here you are dancing and you're having to take care of your body, making sure that, you know, twisted ankles, broken toes, or whatever. That way you can
Hmm.
continue to move straight into hockey, where you're getting banged up and thrown on the ice, and you know sharp objects are by your face.
Sharp objects, yes, but for what it's worth, I was a goalie, so I was very, very padded, and my
Mm-hmm.
flexibility was a boon. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't deal with a lot of like the sort of
Mm.
violence that happens on the ice, with
Mm-hmm.
the exception of a small piece of rubber being shot at me 70 miles an hour. But that was bearable. That was
Yeah.
doable.
Yeah. Especially with all that padding. But yeah, I can see you. That would definitely have you be a goalie with your dance background, being able to move fast.
Yeah, my teammates always gave me crap because I would just sing show tunes in the net. I mean, I was like a theater kid. I was like a theater kid growing up, but I loved
Mm-hmm.
playing hockey.
Yeah.
And so I would just be kind of goofing and goosing and
So you do realize there is an author listening to this taking notes, because right now, funny enough, hockey has had a resurge. It's a
yeah.
revival. Yes. I mean, I said it before to somebody else that I was talking to a couple of days ago, where I find it fascinating where everybody's like loving on the hockey right now as if it's never been done before, but it has. And I'm like, where have you guys been? And but now it's on this like revival. And so now someone's gonna write that goalie that
You
is
know,
also
you,
dancing
the
and singing
dancing
show
goal. The
tunes.
goalies were always, we were always like the strange birds. Whenever we would travel with the teams, you
Mm-hmm.
spend a night in the hotel with all the dads and the kids, and everyone would be up in the halls playing, foot hockey with like a hacky sack, right? Be like,
Mm-hmm.
20 teenage prepubescent boys throwing a hacky sack around. But there, I'll never forget one time. This was all happening, and I just wanted to go downstairs, and there were three. There was like a dad and a kid, dad and their son, in the like area where the breakfast happens,
Mm-hmm.
and like everybody was kind of just hanging out and like playing with the milk cartons. And I remember this is such a weird story. We're just the weird. We were drinking the milk, the little flavored creamer cartons, and it was the three goalies at this like tournament, and we were all the strange birds, and we were all just hanging out in the like breakfast area, drinking these weird milks while all the other kids were like running wild upstairs.
Mm-hmm. As long
So
as
we're
you,
a strange bunch,
yeah.
us goalies. Whether we're singing show tunes,
Mm-hmm.
drinking milk.
Yeah. Well, they've written the story where the hockey player has to take some form of dance class to be either as a punishment or some form of getting that flexibility in there. I would just love it to have it be
It's
where they own it and they love it, and that's also why they play hockey, because of that
that's
gift.
that's
So
just my
yeah.
life. That's just the
Yeah.
story of my life,
Once you
Viviana.
get cast on it, you're like, hey, her, you know.
Oh gosh.
That's fantastic though. Seriously, authors, which ones are you writing this? Come on.
That's
It's
right.
golden.
That's right.
Yeah. Goodness. Before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on and what's coming up next for you?
Yes, I'm very excited. I have my first collaboration with Lauren Blakely coming up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a duet with Samantha Brentmore and J.F. Harding, Double Pucked, a hockey romance. Speak of the devil. So that is something that is that's a big exciting thing. I've got a number of books with Samantha Brentmore this summer coming up,
Mm-hmm.
which is exciting. I can't speak about all the titles, but there's some shifter romances coming out. I have a romance in full Irish narration that's coming out. French pirate situation coming out. Some really fun romances that are like in the post-production stage right now that I'm excited for the release to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. I do love your Irish, so I'm like, yay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's fun to do.
Yeah. And also paranormal is my sweet spot for that. So now I'm like, okay, shifters. So okay, adding that to the list.
Yeah, shifters are fun. Shifter
Yeah.
romances, I've done a few of them this past year, and I'm into it. Because you get a little bit of everything, you get the pack mentality, but then usually there's either like vampires or fae, there's this other supernatural aspect to it, which is fun.com.
Yeah, it's a lot of possibilities. I mean, traditionally it was always just like you were saying, the pack as far as the wolf packs, and they've gotten into like Donna Grant, who writes dragons, and a couple of other ones have had different shifters, and then they busted out with a squirrel, and I'm like, y'all are
a squirrel shifter? No, you're no,
I'm not kidding.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh, that's so fantastic.
Especially when it's the hero of the story, and he's like not tall, good looking, buff, and then squirrel.
Oh my god, I want to listen to that.
I know, me too.
Today. That's outstanding.
I'll have to send you the title.
Please
yeah, but perfect. Rob, thank you so much again for being here and coming back to the series. Love and adore you so much. So thank you.
Please, it's so much fun. I love talking to you. I love talking about books with you. You're so kind to have me on here. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. And thank you again for all that you do for the community and all the awesome stuff that's going to be coming out. And break a leg at the Great Gatsby. And I'm going to see if I can try to make it. I would love to see that and be part of that.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know if you're coming through.
Yeah, because that's going to be like, I know the guy.
That's right.
Yeah, you'll also probably tell me like, behave. I'm like, okay, fine.
That's right. Yes, that's right. That's right as well.
Okay, everyone, thank you for hanging out with us today. I'm going to make sure to include all of the socials so you guys can follow him if you're not already. Seriously, you need to. It's great content. And that information will be over at the main landing page of the Audiobook Lovin Series at Viviana Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listenings.
Cheers.
A special thank you to authors DJ Krimmer, Tana Stone, Landon Beach, PJ Fiala, and all of our sponsors of the Audiobook Lovin 2023 series.
Visit today's episode post to listen to sound clips of some of the books we discussed and enter the month-long giveaway. If you enjoyed the Audiobook Lovin podcast series and you want more, join the Audiobook Lovin podcast Patreon for early access to podcasts, exclusive content like the Would You Rather game and dinner party guests, and additional incentives such as bloopers, graphics, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. Thank you for joining Viviana and her guests for this podcast, and we hope you tune in again as we continue to celebrate Audiobook Month. The Audiobook Lovin Series is hosted by Viviana, the Enchantress of Books. Please make sure to visit the main page linked within the post to learn more about the entire Audiobook Lovin Series and the enchanting author and narrator guests who have joined us over the years. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a review wherever you listened, and please follow us on social media platforms and subscribe to the Viviana, the Enchantress of Books newsletter. Until next time, happy listening. Audiobook Lovin hopes you have enjoyed this program.